welcome to another episode of On the Topic. And this week, it feels a little bit like Christmas, Dan.
It does indeed. Really excited for this episode, actually. I was hammering out the notes last night. I had a beer in one hand, my tablet in the other. Glorious. Could not have been a better Saturday, to be honest. And I've got some left field choices for my favourite Christmas films.
Yeah, that's right, Dan, because we are covering this week. We haven't done it the last couple of years that we've been doing the podcast, but this year we're going to be doing your favourite Christmas movies. And yeah, I've done some research and I've looked at the recordings ready to be dusted off and watched this year. And there are some favourites, and like you, Dan, actually, there's a couple of left field. You're not going to have some of the well-known ones from me. And it sounds like you've got some different ones. So I think it's going to be an interesting episode this week. But we've also got some from our listeners. Isn't that right, from the socials?
Oh, we've got quite a few. We've had a good response to this one. I think the minute we put it up and I was sharing it to even my own profile, we had quite a good nibble on this one.
Everyone, I mean, let's face it, Dan, everyone likes a good Christmas film.
I mean, I started early this year, to be honest. I started mid-November. You know, it's been a crappy year. The Rona's not giving up. We've just come out of lockdown 2.0 and we're in tears, so we're still recording remotely.
Yeah, because the last couple of episodes, Dan, we were behind the mic, weren't we? We were in the same room but socially distanced. But now, not so much. We've got to do it over the internet. Yeah,
we reached out to the podcast community because we just didn't like Microsoft Teams. Sorry, Microsoft, it's not you, it's us. So we did it through Zoom this time, and hopefully this should be a lot better and a lot easier for us to.
We're gonna give it a go and see what happens.
To deliver some time-relevant, delicious podcasts.
Indeed.
I mean, some of the choices aren't time-relevant, but that's fine. But it comes with a bit of nostalgia, Alex. So what's an episode without a bit of nostalgia?
And we definitely do a nostalgia in spades. So yeah, should we crack on, Dan? Should we? I don't know about you, actually. Before we get into it, your tree's up, right?
Oh yeah, that went up sort of towards the end of November. Had some annual leave. Work's been really busy, so I was burning both ends. So me and the missus decided to take a week off, and the tree's up. Obviously, the films came out, and I've probably eaten a bit too much chocolate for my liking, even before December came. So it's all good.
But like you said though, Dan, it's not a normal year. But we've got the twinkling lights on, at least in this household. We've got the stockings up over the fireplace, and we're all ready to go.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it goes against my mantra. Usually I'll be like, no, nothing Christmassy until December 1st. But this year, do you know what? I'll make an exception.
Yeah, screw it. It's not like a normal year, so indulge. And hopefully, if you're listening at home or going to work or listening in the office, then hopefully you've got some decorations out too, because I think we've all learned it this year. So we're also going to be earning very shortly some screen time, Dan. Who wants to start first? You want to start first, or shall I start first? What's your preference this week?
I'll tell you, I'll kick things off.
Oh yeah.
And this one does come with a bit of nostalgia. So my first choice is the Santa Claus from 1994. It can also be found on Disney Plus. I watched this a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Is this the Tim Allen one?
It is. It is. So I actually went to see this at the cinema.
Same.
Way back in 94. I went with my mum, my auntie and my cousin, and I think my nan was there as well. And we went to the Odeon in North End. I mean, you probably won't remember this, Alex, because I don't think you're a Pompey resident back in the 90s.
No, South London. But I ended up watching it in, I think it was Northwest London when I was with my mum. I went to the cinema then. So yeah, I remember it well. I was 9 years old. And you were no doubt around that age too, at 94, I guess.
I think I literally would have just turned 9, because I remember we went about 2 or 3 days just before Christmas Eve. We'd been down Commercial Road, we'd been doing our shopping, and my mum and my auntie turned to us and went, "Do you want to go to the cinema? We'll go see the Santa Claus." And we're like, "Yeah, let's get on board with that." And we went back to North End and went to the cinema. Happy days. Simpler time.
Let's go and see a heartwarming Christmas themed film. No doubt it was sold to you, Dan. Is that right?
Yeah, it was. And I tell you what, I still love it now to this day. I remember watching it with remembering that simpler time of being in the Odeon and with my popcorn and my big bucket of Coke. Lovely.
See, Dan, I might shatter your childhood dreams.
Oh no! Why would you do this?
I do have to. If it's not going to happen in 2020, Dan, when is it going to happen? Now, look, I'm not going to piss on the chips. I'm going to let you go first. You can tell us why you've chosen it, your favourite bits, anything else. But I do have a solid opinion on this one. And I do need to share it. But I'm not going to spoil it, Dan. It's over to you. So tell us about why you fancy a bit of 1994 Tim Allen with the Santa Claus.
I'll give us a synopsis, and I'll sort of try to keep a lot of my notes spoiler-free because I say a lot of these films are on streaming services, and I don't want to give too much away. I say 'tis the season, and people are going to want to dive in, especially if they've got kids.
Yes.
So the synopsis is, by helping Santa Claus with a Christmas crisis, Scott unknowingly agrees to become the next Santa Claus. Now he has to deal with a suspicious former wife while trying to keep his secret safe. Now, this stars Tim Allen, Wendy Crewson, David Krumholtz, Larry Brandenburg, Judge Reinhold, Eric Lloyd, Jane Eastwood, and Peter Boyle. Now, the budget for this one, Alex, wasn't big. It was only $22 million, but actually didn't do too badly at the box office. It made $190.5 million, which is quite a profit.
Yeah, back in '94, that's a decent return on investment, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely. I chose this because I just find Tim Allen's Scott Calvin, he's just fun to spend time with, but he's not exactly a great dad, and he's kind of rude. But, I mean, if he wasn't so damn funny, we'd probably hate him in this film.
He's a bit of a Scrooge, I think it's fair to say, isn't it, Dan? I mean, again, I'm not going to spoil it either, but he's not your stereotypical stepping up to the plate to don the red suit, is he, in this film?
No, and I mean, you've got his kids as well. Charlie, nice kid, but he's a bit whiny. I think he probably is the most annoying character of the film. But considering his dad is literally Santa Claus and he's got to visit the North Pole, why are you still whinging, mate?
Yeah, buck your ideas up.
Still whinging. I mean, one of my favourite moments, I mean, my notes sound really weird, and I've actually put in brackets, that was kind of weird to type. You can't go wrong with Santa Claus dying or Charlie explaining to a sceptical Neil how Santa Claus could be real. Now, Neil is Charlie's stepdad, just to sort of explain that. But I think for me, the funniest, best single moment in the movie actually comes when Scott delivers toys on his first night after he's killed Santa. And a little girl wakes up and she wants to know why Scott is so skinny, why he doesn't have the beard and why he doesn't want to drink the milk. Now, Scott is lactose intolerant. And in the following year, he visits the same little girl and she's left out soy milk for him for a lactose intolerant Santa. And, well,
she's a good girl.
As Santa, he's not lactose intolerant anymore. But she remembered. And obviously, by this point, Scott sort of lightened up. It's like, well, yeah, do you know what? Actually, I am Santa Claus. But no, I love it. But I've got some fun facts for you as well. Like, I didn't know this as I was researching the film. Now, the role of Scott Calvin or Santa Claus was actually written with Bill Murray in mind. After reading the script and being offered the lead role, Murray declined, saying he didn't think it suited his humour. Now, this was a first lead film role for Tim Allen. Now, Tim Allen actually has a criminal record, if you believe it or not.
An actual criminal record. Wow.
Now, as we all know, Disney has a no hiring of ex-cons policy, but they made an exception in this case.
They made an exception for Santa Claus.
Yeah. And talking, I mean, we've talked about divas in the past. Now, Tim Allen was a bit miserable filming this film. It was shot in the height of summer in a non-air conditioned building. So when he was in full costume with the fat suit, the facial prosthetics, the beard and the Santa suit, he was so hot he had to take frequent breaks to cool off. When he got too warm, he would occasionally forget about the children who were playing elves and he'd start cursing. On top of that, the Santa suit rubbed his neck and caused him to develop a painful rash.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
I mean, none of that would have flown in this day and age in terms of the acting scene, would it? You'd have actors up in arms, health and safety. You couldn't have any of that, could you? In
No.
these days, 2020. Well, not that you're filming much in 2020, mind, but yeah, you wouldn't have any of that for actors in this day and age.
No, definitely not. But I still love it. I think I sort of covered it just by sort of explaining the character Scott Calvin and my favourite moment. But it's quite heartwarming. Is it my favourite Christmas film? Not really, but I mean it's up there. And I've sort of tried to sort of steer clear of the obvious choices, which I think a lot of our listeners have covered, and we can sort of discuss those when we sort of dive in. So I just want to sort of mix it up a little bit, and make the less obvious choices.
No, definitely. And I just wanted to go back to Bill Murray, because I think actually, I don't agree with Bill Murray. I think actually he would have been very good. Yeah, he wouldn't have been quite because Bill Murray isn't quite personable as Tim Allen is. Tim Allen is like your everyday man. And Bill Murray isn't. He's just a grumpy old fart. But I think he still would have worked with him, you know. I mean, it's his loss in Tim Allen's game, because I think he did very well with it. But it's just interesting to hear his perception. I mean, from my perspective, Dan, I just think it's a little bit bleak.
Okay.
And only because, you know, he's lost his wife. His son doesn't like him very much. He goes through the transformation of becoming Santa. He loses his job. None of those things, Dan, are very Christmassy.
No, that's true. That is very true.
They're quite depressing. But yes, when you overlay then the fact of he's in like the real world, and he's then trying to find his way as the now Santa, the Christmas vibes do shine through. But I remember, maybe perhaps I was in the mood or whatever, but I remember watching the cinema going, shit, this is bleak. This is really sad stuff. You know, because you do root for the common man, don't you? You want everything to be fine and happy, but no, he loses his well-paid job. He does all these things happen to him as a result of him having to, you know, to become Santa. No one believes him. Isn't he also certified like insane or something? Because people, obviously, he professes that he is Santa, and people don't believe him, and
they
try to get him locked up. None of that, Dan. None of that.
I mean, there's a moment, right? There's a moment where he's shaving the beard off, and he sort of wipes it clean, and the beard grows back. I mean, why not just show people that? If you don't believe him, if you don't believe me as Santa, I'll just shave my beard and I'll show you. It just grows back. This bad boy's not going away. Guys,
look, this is what happens. I can run on a treadmill and I won't lose a stone. I don't know. Just I do get what you're saying. Okay, I don't want to piss on your chips. I don't want to spoil it for anyone. But it's not the most happiest Christmas film in my mind. But perhaps I'm not looking at all the positive, Dan. Perhaps I'm a glass half empty kind of guy.
I mean, as I say, it's on Disney Plus, so it's there for you to revisit if you and the missus fancy it.
Yeah, and perhaps, guys, if you haven't seen it, let us know. Do you get the festive cheer from Dan, and can you look past some of that misery? Or are you Camp Alex, and you think, actually, you know what? I'm with Alex. It's a bit bleak. It's all right. But it can get in the sea. Now, I never said it can get in the sea, Dan, but if that's what our listeners want to say, then fair play.
I think we need another unpopular opinions episode. I mean, we did one way back. I think we need to revisit this in 2021 and just have a get in the sea episode.
Perhaps we'll put also a poll on the socials, Dan, see what people think if they've seen it. See whether they agree. But anyway, I mean, yeah, it's a left field one. We both saw it similar as wee nippers. Not a bad first offering, Dan. But now it depends on your perspective. I am going to go for my all-time favourite. Now, I don't think it's necessarily everyone else's all-time favourite, but I'm going to go a little bit different from you, and I'm going to go with 2011's Arthur Christmas.
Oh, that's on my list. It's literally like my third one down. I watched this. I watched this Friday night. I absolutely loved it. I mean, great casting.
It's heartwarming. It's a different take on the genre. It's fresh, and it's by Aardman. And Aardman obviously does Wallace and Gromit, and it's not the same kind of stop motion. It's the CGI, but nonetheless, you get that magic through there, Dan, don't you?
Yeah.
And the synopsis is when Santa's. And I looked this up. They describe it as Santa's gawky son. Do you know what gawky means, Dan?
No, I mean it sounds like a weird word anyway. Gawky.
Well, it is. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily use this one, but gawky. I mean, you learn new words on the topic. By the way, guys, gawky apparently means lanky or awkward or a little bit strange, a little bit odd. I think that's quite harsh.
I mean, he's a little bit at the start, isn't he? When he's sort of climbing over the elves, he's knocking their equipment over.
He's a bit awkward. But it says here, when Santa's gawky son, Arthur, learns that owing to a technical glitch, a little girl's Christmas gift has been misplaced, he sets out on a mission to deliver the present before it's too late. Now, I've written down here that it is a feel-good film, but it's not what you'd ordinarily expect, Dan, because the sleigh is an invisible sleigh ship, a spaceship. The elves are tiny little ninjas, and it's all run as an ultra-efficient parcel delivery outfit. So if you've never seen After Christmas, if you imagine Amazon, but on a spaceship that's invisible, run by tiny little people who abseil and deliver your presents on Christmas Eve, it'd be very, very weird. And Jeff Bezos, no, thank you, I don't want that. But if you imagine that, that's kind of what it is, Dan, isn't it? I'm not really doing this justice, but nonetheless, it's not straightforward. And I think there's a number of different subplots. So you've got Steve. I think it's fair to say, Dan, he's the CEO of the organisation, isn't he?
Yeah.
Now he has his eyes taking over Santa, the role of Santa, at the end of that run of the Christmas Eve night, and expects to be promoted. Again, no spoilers, not going to go into that detail. There's actual Father Christmas, who takes the title, but is the back seat, almost geriatric, Dan, isn't he? Doesn't know anything about this technology. Doesn't know how to steer his ship. He just takes the crown. And he's actually oblivious to his elder son's ambitions. And probably most likely, I think it's fair to say, takes his efforts for granted. You've got Grandpa Claus, who's critical of modern way of working, and he pines more of the wooden sleigh and the now defunct reindeers. So he's the old school. And then you've got Arthur, who's the most caring of the lot, Dan, isn't he? He's responsible responding for the children's letters. He deeply cares about tradition and the spirit of the Christmas period. So you've got a number of different things going on there. As I say, it's not your Santa Claus. It's not perhaps some of the other films that we'll be talking about during this episode. This one takes a different spin on it. But unless I think it's fresh and I think it brings something new. And I guess my favourite scene of the whole thing is actually in the final, say, 10 minutes of the film, Dan. And this is where, and again, I'm not going to spoil it because I do want our listeners to watch it if they haven't. But when they're racing to deliver said item to the child who was missed off the delivery list, and they're racing against the rising sun, I think it's a great kind of finale. There's soft peril. When I say peril, I mean, no one's going to die. It's just a child may wake up without their toy. And that's quite bad, Dan, isn't it, for Christmas?
Yeah.
So it's really against the clock, but it's heartwarming because the family come together, and I think all the generations of the Claus help each other to come together and deliver this toy. And it is a wonderful, heartwarming film. But yeah, it's an interesting kind of contrast between the kind of the traditional and the modern, the ultra modern, and it's got a great cast. Dan, you got some notes this one, haven't you?
Yeah, you've got James McAvoy, who's Arthur. You've got Hugh Laurie. You've got Bill Nighy. You've got Jim Broadbent, Imelda Staunton, and Ashley Jensen. Great cast, and the voice acting is just on point for this one.
Phenomenal British cast there, and they're all great. They're all comedians by nature of what they do. And it just works so well, Dan, doesn't it? It's just, as you say, it's very well cast, very well voice acted, and I think they are literally the stars of the show. Whoever did the casting of this was, they needed the pay rise because it was phenomenal matching. And yeah, it's it's just a great film, and this will always be my go-to at Christmas. It'll be the first one, or perhaps leave it to last. Say the best till last, but I will definitely watch it. Now, we think it's good, don't we, Dan? But actually, the critics said that the Aardman animations broadens their humour a bit for Arthur Christmas, a clever and earnest holiday film with surprising emotional strength. It sounds a bit wishy-washy, but they gave it, Rotten Tomatoes, a 92%.
Oh,
that's certified fresh. So if you don't believe us, listener, then at least, listen to the Rotten Tomatoes, because they know their stuff. And sure enough, 92%, you can't go wrong. So that was Arthur Christmas, straight out the gates for me. Going hard and strong, Dan, but that's my favourite, and I really can't wait to watch that one.
That's a good start. And I say, one of my favourite moments from that film that I've put in my notes. During one of the delivery operations in Poland, a toy is accidentally activated, waking a child and nearly revealing Santa. It's so tense. I felt so invested straight away. A tense escape operation ensues, during which a Christmas elf aboard the S1 inadvertently leans on a button, causing a present to fall from the supply line and go unnoticed. That's...
Yeah, it's
that's the present that Arthur's trying to deliver, but it's that sort of craftsmanship from the elf where he's got to cut the box open, get the battery out, and just quickly escape. And they beam this massive light into, I think it's a passing car, if I recall.
Yeah, they've got these boxer tricks where they can try and emulate sounds, try and get away from the child's glare, and it's almost got. I think it's got themes from Mission Impossible, and the rest of it. So it does draw on a number of different kind of themes from common popular culture and film, but it's very, very clever, and I would challenge anyone not to crack a smile within the first 10 minutes of the film. It's very clever and very heartwarming.
So good. Before I dive into my next choice, actually, there is a fun fact. This is Sony Animation's second fully animated movie to not include a main antagonist after Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. How'd you like them meatballs, Alex?
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, that's a fair point, actually, because there is no big bad, is there?
No.
Apart from bad blood between family members, there is no baddie. I never thought of it like that, Dan. It's a fair point, because, you usually have the Grinch or the Scrooge or something or other. But, yeah, it's the only baddie in this one is the unfortunate accident.
Exactly.
Good fact there.
So my next choice is a sequel, and I know everyone's going, "Well, Dan, you guys have slated sequels in the past. Why have you chosen a sequel for this?" Well, it's the Santa Claus 2 from 2002, also on Disney Plus.
And so I haven't, for obvious reasons. Now that we've already talked about the first one, you'll know why I haven't. But I haven't seen the second one, Dan. So this is news to me. So enlighten me, Dan. Why the second one, and what's it all about?
This one's a little bit more Christmassy, so it isn't about a man losing his job, and he's still being hated by his kid for obvious reasons when you watch it.
But I think as you ascertain, by the end of the first one, you probably hate the kid back too, though, don't we? Because as you say, he probably needs to grow up hair.
Now, the synopsis for this one is set 8 years after the events of the Santa Claus, and Scott Calvin has become a great Santa Claus at the North Pole until head elf Bernard and Curtis, the keeper of the Handbook of Christmas, inform them that there is another Claus, the Mrs. Claus.
Oh.
Scott is now pressed to get married before the next Christmas Eve, or the clause will be broken and he will stop being Santa forever. However, things get complicated when his son's name appears on the naughty list. Very similar casting. So you've got Tim Allen, Judge Reinhold, Wendy Crewson, Elizabeth Mitchell, who I believe was in Lost as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think she was one of Jack's sort of flings a little bit later on in season 4 or season 5, if I recall. You got David Krumholtz, Eric Lloyd, and Spencer Breslin. Now, again, it didn't do too badly at the box office. With a budget of $65 million, it actually raked in $172.9 million.
Wowzers. And what was the year, do you say, Dan?
This was released in 2002, so this is like very much 8 years. Yeah, 8 years.
Exactly.
Now, this was the first time I watched it, and I watched this probably a week or two ago. But me and the missus enjoyed it. We've been knocking out the Christmas films sort of quite regularly to sort of cheer us up. And I was like, can't go wrong with Arthur Christmas. I love that film.
Yeah, man.
But there's a particularly nice moment. Now, Scott Calvin actually befriends Charlie's principal, Carol. Now, Carol takes Scott to a staff party. Carol obviously works in a school, and all the teachers are a little bit bored. Now, Scott doesn't have a lot of Christmas magic to use, and obviously he's sort of wavering. He's trying to find love. But he brings the party to life by magically making presents that they all loved or wanted as kids appear, and he hands them out, and everyone's having a great time. So he sort of reinvigorates this party from what was quite dull and a bit. I mean, I was bored watching it, Alex, and all of a sudden I was like, "Oh my god, these people are getting toys! It's so good."
So I got an interesting question for you, Dan.
Shoot away.
As we like to often have curveballs during these episodes, I've got to ask you a question. What has been your favourite present of all time, or that you always wanted as a kid but never got?
Oh, that's a tough one.
Favourite one you had before? If you think about Christmas, you think about your childhood Christmas, what comes to mind? What's that one or two presents that really stand out, or that you never actually got but you always were pining for? Either that you got on the Argos catalogue. Can you remember the Argos catalogue, Dan? I'm not talking about the iPads now in Sainsbury's, whatever's happened there. For all of our non-UK listeners, you're probably thinking, what the hell is an Argos? But it's a shop.
Well, and it's
gone through some changes. But yeah, back in the day, Dan, you used to get the 300, 500 page catalogue. You get the pen out and you'd circle the pages and you'd dog ear them and you leave it for your parents a good 6 weeks in advance, wouldn't you? Just so they'd get the hint that you had something that you want in there. But again, they were simpler times, weren't they? With the
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll throw you a curveball back. It was 1996. I mean, I was absolutely in love with Marvel. I still am. But I remember...
Height of Spice Girls.
Yeah, Height of Spice Girls, but I loved Marvel.
Okay, good.
And I remember getting this sort of... I mean, it was a book. It's quite big, quite heavy. And I remember unwrapping this book, and it was almost like an encyclopedia. And it had like year by year, different characters. So this was 96. I fell in love with this book, and I just remember I held on to this book literally every day for so long, and I was just sort of soaking it all in and having it was like a power of knowledge. I mean, I don't know where this book is now. I think it's probably lost through sort of several moves with my parents many years ago, but no, I loved it. I think that's probably one of my all-time favourite presents. I mean, you sort of think I'd go for the obvious choice, like a toy, or a computer game, or maybe a console. But no, that's one that always sticks in my mind. Is just opening that book, and I just fell in love with it.
Okay.
But I suppose the same question to you.
Well, there's two things that come to mind. The first one must have been 1993. I was well out of time for this one, but I loved the Thunderbirds. There's no doubt all young kids used to do during the 90s, 80s, and 70s. But it's a Thunderbirds, Dan. Now, this is really important because during the early 90s, it had a bit of a resurgence, didn't it? Were you into Thunderbirds?
Yeah, there was Thunderbirds, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90. And I remember my dad, he got me a couple of VHS tapes of Bible XL5.
Okay.
So good. So good.
Jerry Anderson, a great creative mind. But yeah, the Thunderbirds, all about a family of brothers who form international rescue. I don't know how the fuck they can afford all these lovely spaceships and their own desert island, but they do. Let's not question the fact they're probably drug dealers by day and superheroes by night. But anyway, let's not go there.
Parker's a shady guy, isn't he? He's up to something.
100%.
Penelope's rich for a reason.
Yeah. Slave trade or something. Very dark background to her. But no, all things aside, it was Tracy Island, Dan. Tracy Island, a big hulking bit of plastic. But it had there the cave where you put Thunderbird 2. It had the Rocket Bay where you put Thunderbird 1. You'd have the water ramp, which would be Thunderbird 5. Anyway, it was phenomenal. And of course, I had all the toys and I put it in there and the parkour. It was fantastic. So, I mean, they were hard to come by actually in that year because everyone wanted it. I think my dad managed to get it literally like the week before Christmas. Don't know how he did it. And they weren't cheap either. I think there was something like 60 odd quid. Now, 60 odd quid isn't cheap now. You know, back in the 90s, it was probably what, 70, 80, give or take. It was a lot of dosh. So obviously, my dad loved me that year. Another one comes to mind is, so I had a Nintendo 64 console, one of the best consoles ever made, in my opinion. And we talk about this, don't we, on the all-time favorite gaming or
it's like retro gaming, was it?
Retro gaming, yeah.
2018, just after we sort of started. Great episode.
Yeah. Really, really good. And I had Nintendo 64 and I had the expansion pack. So this was the thing that you slot into it and it gives you the extra bit of, I guess, graphics. And that's how I could then play Donkey Kong 64, Donkey Kong World, because you couldn't play it without this expansion pack. And I loved it. And all my games were slightly crispier and just gave it that little bit extra kind of graphics processing. Back in the day, you could add a cartridge to a console. But anyway, yeah, so those are probably the ones that come to mind, really. I mean, I always pined for a figurine of Wolverine from the X-Men. Again, I'm not sure if I shared this story before on the podcast, Dan, but as was the way with Argos, it never ever happened today, right? But you'd have a selection of toys in a range, and you'd go there with one number. And I remember I wanted an X-Men figurine, I think from a birthday or something. I saved up, and it's come up to Christmas, and I'd circled. I think I wanted Wolverine. But when you go to Argos back in the day, you couldn't choose what you wanted. You just would get given what you got.
Yeah.
It's a very, very odd concept. And so I think there's 3 or 4 different figurines, so the 1 in 4 chance. And I sent my nan off into town, into Croydon, where I lived, outside London. And she came back with Cyclops. And I spent the whole day looking out the window, waiting for her to come home. And she returned with Cyclops, and my heart sank. Because I wanted, obviously, the favourite X-Men, with the blades in his hand, slicing and dicing people, the yellow costume. So I've never, ever had my hands on a Wolverine. So if anyone's listening and want to send some fan mail or some fan presents, give me a little Wolverine figurine, because I've always wanted one. And it's always been elusive. But yeah, that is my fucked up childhood, Dan. Woe to be me. I know a lot of people would love to have those things as well. So I was very spoiled. Look, I'm not going to put any punches. I was very well looked after. But I still want that Wolverine, and that's just how emotionally scarred I am. But look, if anyone else wants to let us know what they got for their Christmas presents, their favourite Christmas presents, let us know. Share in the social medias and get in touch, because we're really keen to hear what you got on. There's still time, because when this episode drops, still a couple of weeks till Christmas. We can read some out perhaps on our Christmas episode coming up, our usual Christmas day, to rival the Queen's speech.
Yeah, I think we're better, but I mean,
100%.
That's my unpopular opinion.
It's popular, mate. We've smashed out the park the last 2 years. So yeah, been off old Queenie. She ain't got much to talk about. She ain't been doing much as the rest of us for 2020. Make sure you mark your calendars for On the Topics Christmas Day message.
Yeah, it's a goodie. I hope. I haven't actually made any notes. I might just shoot from the hip for that episode.
Oh, why not? Why not?
Have a bit of fun. But yeah, back to the Santa Claus 2. This can be found on Disney Plus. And the fun facts for this one: Toy Santa, because as Scott is going back to wherever he lives to try and find love, he clones himself as a toy, and Toy Santa says in a fight with Scott, "You're a sad, strange little man." Now, this is a reference to the same line spoken by Buzz Lightyear in Toy Story.
Yes.
Also played by Tim Allen.
It is. Nice little Easter egg there.
I say this one isn't quite as it's not quite as dark, I suppose, to the first one. It's a little bit more Christmassy. It's a little bit more enjoyable. It's predictable. Don't get me wrong. You'll know where it's going once you sort of dive in. But
perhaps that's what you need, Dan. Perhaps you need that comfort after the devastating storyline of the first film.
Yeah,
and you want something familiar.
But yeah, this is a good one to sort of watch back to back. Watch them back to back. I mean, they're only like an hour and a half long. So go for it. But I say my next two choices are sequels as well. So it gets a little bit more interesting. But I'm interested to hear what your next choice is.
Yeah, left field, Dan. The Holiday.
Okay. I don't know if I've actually watched The Holiday.
Yeah, I really look. Okay,
you've got.
If anyone knows me. Shit. I mean, I've got some. I'm throwing shade at some actresses in this.
Oh boy.
This isn't the way to sell it. But okay, so if I said to you this is a romantic comedy set around Christmas. Yeah, there'd be silence. You'd be like, "What are you talking about, Alex? Like, have you been having too much Baileys? What are you on about?" Now, look, this isn't the stereotypical Christmas film, and it isn't the stereotypical Christmas film for Alex. But hear me out, Dan.
Okay.
So, the synopsis is: two girls from different countries swap homes for the holidays for the Christmas period to get away from their relationship issues. However, their lives change unexpectedly when they meet and fall in love with two local guys. You sold yet?
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
That's better than what I thought you would say. Now this stars Jude Law, Cameron Diaz, Kate Winslet, and Jack Black. So we're not talking. None of those are really B-list.
That's quite a good cast, to be fair.
It's pretty strong. Now, look, I'm not going to spoil it. If you haven't seen it, please do watch it. And Dan, you need to whack this on. Get the missus involved because I think you'll both like it. If you don't, I'll buy you both a drink from Staggeringly Good. That is my promise to you.
No, I am sold.
Now, don't lie to me because you'll get free beers out of me.
No, I'll be honest.
I want you to go and watch it and want to tell me. But nonetheless, the principle is, I mean, there's a bit of the late 90s kind of Three Weddings kind of Love Actually feel, where Kate Winslet is in love with this rogue, this lovable rogue, although I think it's a bit of a prick, who gets engaged to his girlfriend, but he keeps on flirting very obviously with her. They know they've got chemistry, but he strings her along. She's head over heels. She's really in love, but she realizes that he's just a dick, so she needs to get away. So she goes on to this house swapping site. Now, I'm sure actually these things do exist, but she logs on. It looks quite dated now because of websites. But anyway, she logs on and she gets in contact with her counterpart in America, in LA, who turns out to be Cameron Diaz. Now, Cameron Diaz is going through a split. She finds out her boyfriend's been cheating on her. She's very hardworking. She's got a problem crying, Dan. She has issues with her emotions, which causes problems with her relationships. So she's very hardworking, very high performing, working in the film industry. And she splits with her boyfriend. She needs to get away. So she wants to go to picturesque England. I think it's in Surrey somewhere that Kate Winslet lives. And they decide to do a house swap. And of course, there's lots of like British or English tropes of the snowy kind of Kent or Surrey, I think it's Surrey, countryside at Christmas, which never happens. It never snows in the UK at Christmas. Well, apart from Scotland. But England per se doesn't snow. I don't think we had snow since 1986, I think, Dan, in the UK. You had to fact check me on. So you have to check that.
Snow that I can remember in Portsmouth.
On Christmas?
Christmas. Yeah, no.
86,
maybe
mate.
after. Oh, yeah, okay.
Got to be 86. So, doesn't happen. So that's a lie. But then you look at Kate Winslet when she joins LA, and it's it is stereotypical LA. You know, the quite warm climate, full of palm trees. It's all very nice. She lives in a very nice house. Anyway, transpires that Jude Law comes visiting this Surrey house looking for his sister Kate Winslet. She's not there. Finds Cameron Diaz. They fall in love. Blah blah blah. Jack Black, who works with Cameron Diaz, who's this ball busting boss, finds Kate Winslet. He falls in love, and it all starts from there. But it is a comedy. Jack Black isn't his annoying self. Actually, he really does bring kind of a more serious, kind of softer side to his characters. So if you're interested in something like that from Jack, it is different. It's not a comedy like he's done before, which is slapstick or it's over the top. It is very, very good. Kate Winslet, for me, is phenomenal, Dan. She steals the show. We all know she's got a wide range of acting talent, and she is brilliant in this. You really do I think of all the characters, you really do back her, and you really want her to have a really good story out of this. Cameron Diaz fucks it up. Absolutely, totally fucks up. You couldn't have anything more wooden than her. If you put her into a forest, you wouldn't know where she was because she'd be as wooden as anything else that stood there. It is appalling. It's like she's almost in pantomime. And that's the one thing I do find about this film is she's very jarring because you've got Jude Law, who's, again, the lovable rogue, but he's got a warmer side to him. Again, there are some kind of spins to the storyline. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there's an interesting spin on the character. Jack Black, unexpected, but has an emotional side to him, and again, quite funny, but charming. Not silly Jack Black, but charming. Kate Winslet, as I say, she's phenomenal. Great actress. There's a good reason why she's celebrated. Cameron Diaz screws up. So what I will say is, Dan, if you can look past Cameron Diaz, who I guess she gets a lot of the focus because she's the big name, I guess, for an American audience in here. If you look past that, there's a really, really good story. However, the critics don't think so, Dan, because they say that while it's certainly sweet and even somewhat touching, the holiday is so thoroughly predictable that audiences may end up opting for an early checkout time. They gave it a score of 50%, Dan, the critics.
Ouch.
Not great. But the audience, though, gave it 80. So there is something there that obviously resonates with the audience that perhaps critics, it's not highbrow enough. But I really, really like, and again, this one's going to be on my list of things to stream. I think it's on Netflix at the minute. In my opinion, look, I mean, my offer to you stands, Dan. I'll get you two beers for Staggeringly Good out in Portsmouth. To our listeners, I won't be doing that. I'll be bankrupt. Please do give it a listen. Let us know what you think. But I really, really like The Holiday. It is touching. It is heartwarming. And it's a lovely story if you look past Cameron Diaz. So, yeah, that's my other left field, Dan. I've got some more common ones coming up. But, yeah, it's a good film. So, yeah, have a watch and let me know whether I'm going to be out of pocket as soon as you can.
Okay, I will do. Obviously, it's coming up to Christmas, so I'm not expecting it before Christmas if I don't like this film. You know, you can get me in the new year when you've been paid.
Thank God.
So don't panic. It's fine.
But no, I'm going to be positive, Dan. I'm going to say that I won't owe you those beers because you're going to enjoy it so much. You're going to let me know.
I will.
There you go.
So, I mean, this one, everyone's got Netflix now, right? This one is a Netflix exclusive. The Christmas Chronicles from 2018. So, of course, as I mentioned earlier, there's a sequel involved as well, which is the Christmas Chronicles 2, which is also on my list. And that sort of rounds it up for me on my left field choices. But I'm going to dive into the first one first. Now, the synopsis for this. Siblings Kate and Teddy Pierce hatch a scheme to capture Santa Claus on camera on Christmas Eve. When the plan goes awry, the kids join forces with a somewhat jolly Saint Nick and his loyal elves to save the holiday before it's too late. Now, this has got a great cast of actors. I mean, the big one is Kurt Russell.
Yes.
Does a really good Santa Claus. And now in this film, it's not your typical Santa Claus. He doesn't ho, ho, ho. He's like, that's a cliche. That's just a myth. I don't do that. He's not the typical big fat Santa Claus, blushing white beard and white hair. He's sort of a bit grey. But no, I really like Kurt Russell as Santa Claus. But it's got some. It's a bit of a family affair actually when you sort of hear some of the other actors that I mentioned and actresses. So there's Judah Lewis, Darby Camp, Lamorne Morris, Kimberly Williams Paisley. Now this is the family affair, Alex. The next two, Oliver Hudson, and Goldie Hawn. So
wow. Yeah.
Oliver Hudson is Goldie Hawn's son from a previous marriage, and then Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell have been together for, I think, in my notes somewhere, a bit of trivia, since 1983. They've been together for some time, but I mean, especially with the second film, it's a great casting choice because what better way to get great chemistry out of two actors when you get the couple, in my opinion.
Some on-screen chemistry.
It works. And then finally, just to wrap off the cast for the first film, Martin Roach and Bella Lovell. Now, I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but for me, there's a great moment where Santa gets arrested in Chicago and he's in prison. Now, he's got all of his inmates around him and he just magically pulls out some instruments. And as you do, and they're just having a great time. They're blasting out some great rock and roll tunes, and it cuts to the kids somewhere in Chicago where Kate Pierce utters, "Santa must be worried," and then it cuts back to Santa, and he's still rocking out in his prison cell, just having a great time. Now, my fun fact for this film actually ties into my favourite scene. Now, I didn't know this until I was doing a bit of research behind the film. The band playing the song in the jail scene is the real band of Steven Van Zandt, a.k.a. Little Steven, who also played in Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. He's the one playing the guitar. Now, the band's name is the Despicables of Soul. I didn't know that, but fun fact for our listeners. So keep your eyes peeled if you do decide to dive into this one.
There you go.
Absolutely love this. I say it's not your sort of cliche sort of Christmas film where Santa's, I say he hasn't got like the white hair and the white beard. He's not fat. I say I think I mean, me and Claire were talking about this the other day. Claire, my other half. All the Christmas films seem to have something in common. There's always some sort of disaster. There's always sort of like a take on how Santa goes around the world. I think After Christmas sort of twists that a little bit, but it's quite cool. And somehow they always manage to save Christmas. It's always a similar plot line, Alex, but it
works.
It still works. I reckon we should just write a Christmas film. We've been threatening to write a film for so long. This is it. We've got the model from every Christmas film. They're pretty much all the same. All we've got to do is invent our own.
Well, the thing is, though, it won't cost us much because we can just pull on listeners, film it in Portsmouth. What? A couple of thousand? That'll do, right? And then we can make an absolute mint at the box office. And we'll be laughing all the way to making the £1 billion mark, right?
Obviously, it's a nice dream for 2020. It could happen.
A pipe dream.
Maybe we should.
A lot of things that has happened in 2020 shouldn't have happened, perhaps. So should that film that we just described. Probably should never see the light of day. But we'll see, Dan. We may get round to it.
Yeah, fingers crossed. 2021, here we come.
That's right.
Do you want me to explain the Christmas Chronicles 2? Seeing that sort of...
Yeah.
This is the latest release. Okay.
This is 2020 release, right?
Yeah, so this is 2 years later. Now, Kate Pierce is reunited with Santa Claus when a troublemaker threatens to cancel Christmas forever.
No.
Yeah. So
That's
there's actually a villain in this one. So there is an antagonist. Kate, now a cynical teen, is unhappy spending a family Christmas in Cancun, Mexico. Right. Here's my first problem. Why would you be unhappy spending Christmas on a luscious beach in Cancun or Mexico?
I've got a question for you, Dan. Sorry, I know I keep on derailing the episodes, but that's what I do best. Have you ever been away from the UK or from the family home on Christmas before?
Yes.
Where was it?
So it was the year my late nan passed away, and we had a bit of inheritance money. My dad took us to Florida for Christmas. It was strange, obviously. Like the Americans over there, it's more like happy holidays. It's not really a Christmas, I guess. Not in Florida anyway. Well, it certainly didn't feel like Christmas. And we decided to go to Disneyland on Christmas Day, thinking that the Americans will stay at home. It will never be busy. We queued up in the car just to get into the Magical Kingdom for a good hour. They had to shut the park because it was so rammed.
Oh, man. And
even the queue for It's a Small World, the poxiest ride in Disneyland in its entirety, because I hate that ride. I hated it as a kid. I hated it as a teenager. I probably hate it now. It was 2 hours long.
Oh, wow. So you're spending a lot of time queuing on Christmas Day of all days. Yeah,
we ended up getting like a shuttle to, I think it was Animal Kingdom. And we spent it there. But there's not really any rides to enjoy. There wasn't like any roller coasters. There wasn't Space Mountain and or the Haunted House. But I mean, it is what it is. But we did some other fantastic theme parks in that holiday. We went to MGM Studios, got to ride the Aerosmith Rock and Roll roller coaster.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful. But yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, have you been away for Christmas, away from the family home?
Yeah, only once over Christmas. That's to India. And I fucking loved it, Dan.
Nice. India.
Who would not want a curry on Christmas Day? You don't want a bit of dry turkey. All right, you're missing your pigs in blankets, but you got a bloody curry. And it was lovely, Dan. It was beautiful. And so at Christmas Eve, I went to the Taj Mahal in Agra, or near Agra, and I saw the sunset. And then Christmas Day, I did another excursion. A couple of hours later, went on sunrise and Christmas morning. And it's entirely different. So you would say, Alex, why did you go twice in succession? Because the sun looks, and when the sun goes down, obviously it's orange hue against the white marble. And when the sun rises, it looks incredibly different, and it's phenomenal. We've got the reflection pools and everything. It's beautiful. It's a lovely part of the world. It's a wonderful place, and the people are so great and welcoming. And I loved it. You could say, well, Alex, you couldn't go too far from the traditional UK Christmas tree, presents, Christmas dinner, and that was fine though. It was different, and it was wonderful, and it's still accommodating. You still had Christmas trees and stuff in the hotels. People accommodated for us, but it was nice, Dan. It was different. I wouldn't want to do that every year, mind, but yeah, India, bloody lovely.
Nice.
So if you haven't gone away for Christmas, perhaps not this year, guys. For obvious reasons, give it a miss. Don't invite more trouble than it's worth, but have a think about future years, because it's really, really different, and it's great fun. Yeah, that's my one. But anyway, so you're right. Why would anyone want to be, unless they're queuing for rides, that must be said, or they're missing out on the Christmas dinner, but why would anyone be upset at being in Mexico, Cancun at Christmas? What's wrong with them?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, she's in Cancun, Mexico. She's with her mum, Claire, her brother Teddy, who comes back from the second film, obviously, her mum's new boyfriend Bob, and his son Jack. Obviously, as a teenager, I mean, I can't relate myself, but you're probably like, my mum's with this new guy. Why do I want to be here with this new bloke, right?
Indeed.
But hey, she wants to be back home where it's snowing and more like a real Christmas. And so we've just had that discussion, haven't we? But it's nice to sort of get away from it and maybe see what it's like elsewhere. Kate decides to run away and get an early flight back to home, Boston. She catches a shuttle that Jack sneaks onto. And as I mentioned earlier, Jack is the son to Bob. They are unexpectedly transported to the North Pole by the driver, Belsnickel, the nefarious elf. I mean, you couldn't get a more villainous name or like a cheeky villainous name like Belsnickel, right? That's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm selling you already up to watch this film.
Oh, I'm all over it.
I mean, the cast is very similar again. You got Kurt Russell, Goldie Hawn, Darby Camp, Kimberly Williams Paisley, Jazir Bruno, Julian Dennison, Tyrese Gibson, and Judah Lewis. A little bit of trivia for this one. The elves in the Christmas Chronicles speak Elvish. The Elvish language heard in the Christmas Chronicles 2 and the original film were both created by language consultant David J. Peterson. But no, I love this one. It might even be slightly better than the first one because you've got the antagonist Belsnickel. You see lots of like little gadgets. They do sort of fill in a lot of the small details sort of by revisiting stories in the past. So it does sort of fill in little things. I don't think anything's sort of really missed out. And they do sort of dive back into the first film as well. A little bit of time travel. Nothing more superhero than time travel.
I know, right? All your staples are in there. Gadgets and time traveling. What more could you want, Dan?
And again, another music scene of Santa rocking out in Boston Airport in the 1990s.
There you go.
Can't go wrong. But I say they're both very worth checking out. They're on Netflix. Both roughly about 2 hours long, maybe slightly less, but get on board. And Alex, if you don't enjoy this, I will try and find you that Wolverine figure.
Beautiful. All right, I'll have a look and I'll let you know. We may be exchanging some presents in the shape of my my sad childhood dreams and your alcoholic fixes.
It's not a good hobby, to be fair. This is my winter body. Obviously, our listener can't see this. I don't think you can see this. I've turned my webcam off because my laptop is pretty crap.
I've got a great imagination, Dan, and I'm loving it. That's what I want to say. I'm loving
This is my winter body, and it's my winter body all year round. Thank you very much. But I mean, that wraps up for my choices. I didn't want to dive into the obvious ones. I say Arthur Christmas was in my notes as well. Great, some good choices. And I say our listeners have got some great ones for us to dive into as well.
Well, I'm going to give you one more then, Dan. And I've got some honourable mentions, but I'm going to go for 1988. Die Hard.
Now, my missus wrote in. She's always getting involved for our episodes. This was also her choice, and she sent us the GIF. Welcome to the party, pal.
That's right. Or ho, ho, ho. Or I've got a machine gun now. Ho, ho, ho. Scrawled in blood on a jumper. This stars, of course, Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman. Jesus, he's such a talented, or was such a talented actor. Phenomenal as Hans Gruber and the rather forgettable Bonnie Bedelia. Now, Dan, we both love Die Hard. I think it's fair to say, right?
Yeah, 100%. And this is one of those films I don't want to dive in sort of too early in the month. Do you know what I mean? You don't want to peak too early.
No, true.
So me and the missus, we've got it planned in.
Oh, we're going to watch it. Back.
We're just holding back just a little bit. I mean, she's going back home to see her family the day after my birthday, but we'll get it in there. We're going to sneak it in. Yeah. And we're going to get on Die Hard because it's 100% a Christmas film. I don't care what anyone says. Fight me.
The internets are up in rage and up in arms every single Christmas because people say it is or it isn't. Now look, there's a bloody Christmas tree in it. It's a quite big one. It's also a Christmas party, and it snows. So if it ain't Christmas, I'm not interested. But I mean, look. There is the first of many films, probably just well worth just watching the first one. Second one's not too good. Third one's actually very good. I watched it recently, actually. That's got Samuel L. Jackson in it, and it's phenomenal. The third, I've forgotten just how much I loved it. The ending was a little bit rushed, but that's well worth watching. But no, this is the first one. So if you haven't seen it, guys, the first film begins on Christmas Eve, hence Christmas, when John McClane, played by Willis, goes to reunite with his separated wife Holly, played by Bonnie Bedelia, in Los Angeles at a company's Christmas party at the Nakatomi Plaza Tower. Now, Holly abandons her marriage apparently to pursue a career and takes her 2 children and uses her maiden name. So you've already got a plot there of some unhappy families. Now, apparently at the Nakatomi Plaza, East German terrorists, again, gives you kind of an idea about the period of time we're talking about in the 80s, break in and take the celebrants hostage. So people enjoying their wine down, aren't they, and their vol au vents, and they're getting merry and a bit frisky. And then the East German terrorists come in and hold everyone to ransom. Now, McClane manages to escape because he's a New York detective and hides throughout the building. And he kills off gang members and learns their real plan was to steal $640 million in bonds from the building's vault. So it's a heist film, but it's not. They don't know about that at the time. Now, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I think we talked about this, Dan, haven't we, in our favourite all-time villains episode?
Yeah, great episode.
From last year, I think, wasn't it? Was it last year?
Yeah, I think this needs another volume 2, as well.
I think so, for sure.
So vast. I've got
there's another one. I'm just thinking of another one that comes to mind, which I'll make a note and I won't spoil it. But yeah, definitely volume 2 needs to happen. But no, in that one, we talk about Rickman playing Hans Gruber, and there's an interesting part at the very end where John McClane by Willis, he's grabbing onto Gruber by the wrist and by the watch. And it's a fantastic part where he's dropped from the top of this high-rise building, this skyscraper. And there's a genuine look in his face of fear, Dan, isn't there? You know where I'm going with this. I told you about this before.
Yeah.
Well, the director, to get that perfect shot, I mean, it wasn't a large fall. There was perhaps a couple of meters with a crash mat underneath and green screen. But in order to get the sheer sense of terror in the face of Alan Rickman as he's falling, the director counted down from 3 down. You're thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with that, is there? He's expecting a fall, but instead of dropping him on 1 or after 1, he dropped him on 2. So he said, right, you ready, Alan? I'm going to drop you now. Going to count down from 3. You good? Good, right. 3, 2, drops him. Because he's not expecting it. And he shits himself on camera. But you can see that in glorious cinematic history. And it really kind of, it's a funny anecdote, but also it just goes to show just how you can get that perfect shot. And Alan Rickman, sure enough, he's petrified because he thinks he's going to die. And it's a wonderful shot, but it's so iconic. So it's not a family friendly film. If you've never seen it, the title probably gives it away. Don't get the grandkids around. Don't gather your little boys or girls or younger family members. It is a 15, I think, for good reason. It's bloody. There's glass in feet. There's people getting murdered. It's not a traditional Christmas film. All of other films talked about love and togetherness and collaboration. This is quite the opposite.
Yeah.
But it's a great film. It really was kind of the breakthrough for Willis in the 80s, and he also went to do some phenomenal things in films. And it's a great one, and it's bittersweet, but it's funny. There's dark humor in it, and it's a great action film. So that one's Die Hard back in 88. If you haven't seen it, crack on, because it is actually one of my all-time favorite films. I think it's even number 1 or 2, and there's bold things to say, but it's a Christmas film. Fight me. And that is my last one. I mean, we could have mentioned Home Alone 1 or 2. 3's very odd. I have never seen it, but the
don't. It belongs in the sea.
We talked about in sequels. We talked about in sequels, didn't we, Dan? That episode.
Yeah.
We talked about Home Alone 3. But first, Home Alone 1 and 2 are very, very good. All featuring the Wet Bandits. Interesting, Dan. The Home Alone 1 only got 65% Rotten Tomatoes score.
No way.
For sure, but the audience gave it 100%, but the audience gave it 80%. So they know where it's at. But you could have mentioned The Snowman back in 1982. You could have mentioned how the Grinch Stole Christmas back in 2000. Where you got Jim Carrey. That was also directed by Ron Howard, Dan, who was obviously familiar in the 80s, in the other side of the camera in Happy Days, Ron Howard, but also is a fantastic decorated director now. The Nightmare Before Christmas, back in 1993. Or you could have had Elf, Dan, couldn't you?
Yeah.
2003, which I saw for the first time last year, and it upset a lot of people, but I'd never seen it before. But I didn't mention any of those, but they could have made the list, and I know that there are some classics in there. But as I say, I didn't want to go over old ground. I should share with you guys something a little bit different. So left field all the way, make no apologies, go and watch those and enjoy those. But those are some that you could have mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, funnily enough, some of our listeners didn't actually choose Elf, which is a surprise.
No way. That is
classic with Will Ferrell, 2003. Obviously, Buddy the elf isn't really an elf. He's a fully grown man in the North Pole.
Indeed.
Who actually needs to go home to New York to try and find his real dad. And it's a goodie. I mean, I personally didn't choose it because I thought someone else would for us to discuss. But hey, here we are, Alex. Is Elf as good as people make out? Because it hasn't been chosen.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, Dan. Will Ferrell is phenomenal. And Peter Dinklage is in it, isn't he?
He is, yeah.
And he's very, very good. But it's not my top 5. Again, if I upset anyone, apologies. But it's just, I don't think it's worthy of my top 5. It's good. But yeah, that's why I haven't chosen it for mine.
But say on to the listener. First up is Sam. Big shout out to Sam. Actually, we used to be in a band together, and naturally, I think we went our separate ways, and we sort of rekindled that friendship recently. And he started tuning into the podcast. If anyone wants to know what me and Sam actually got up to in 2006, drop us an email, and I'll send you the whole discography, which I've actually pulled out from a hard drive that I found the other day.
God knows what else on that hard drive, Dan. Let's not go into that.
Oh, nothing exciting, really. I'd sort of had a quick sort of dive through. There's nothing good on there at all. It's just like backs up iTunes files and a couple of films, but that's it, really. But if anyone wants to catch me a comic discography, I'll send you it. There's some bangers on there, mate. There's some good tunes that we used to write. But his choice was Muppets Christmas Carol.
Okay, yeah. One of my co-presenters on the hospital radio absolutely loves this. It's her all-time favourite Caroline. So yeah, it is loved. It is loved.
My other half loves this, and usually she sort of sits down with her mum and sister and her niece at Christmas to watch this one. It
is probably the quintessential family film, actually. I know it hasn't made our lists, but it's a fair point. I probably have overlooked it because it's very funny and it's actually quite heartwarming just watching puppets play out a familiar story. But it's actually really good, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed it actually when I watched it with my other half. Must have been last year. We'd literally just sort of moved flats. Needed cheering up because we actually didn't really like this flat, hence why we've now moved since. But yeah, no, it's quite a good one. And I'm not a massive Muppets fan. I just never got into them as a kid.
Same. Yeah,
but it's a good one. It's quite a heartwarming one, I think, if you're looking for that Christmas spirit film.
Feel good film for sure.
Yeah. Next up, we've got Natalie, who chose The Nightmare Before Christmas. Is it a Halloween? Is it a Halloween film? Try and get my words out here. Is it a Halloween film or is it a Christmas film?
It's a Tim Burton, isn't it? Is it Tim Burton?
I think it's both. I think you could essentially watch it Halloween. And
this is going to be unpopular, but nothing against Natalie. I think it's a good choice, and then lots of people do love it. I just can't get on board with Tim Burton.
Yeah, I think he came up.
I don't like his films. I like Batman, the original Batman. That's Tim Burton, but that's because it is dark and it isn't a normal superhero grounded in reality. It is an oddball and it's very dark, and I get that. But his other animated stuff, I don't like them, Dan.
Yeah,
So,
I think he actually came up in our Unpopular Opinions episode way back in early 2019. A simpler time, of course, pre-Rona. So I think we need to do a volume 2 or a Get in the Fucking Sea episode.
yeah.
Obviously, I won't be putting the F bomb in the in the title, but I think this episode is going to be an explicit one for sure.
Yeah, I'll slap me on that one. But nothing against Natalie. It's a good choice, and as I say, I know lots of people like it. And perhaps that's a bit of everything for everyone. You know, it's a Halloween film and a Christmas film all in one lovely package.
Yeah, as I mentioned in your choice for Die Hard, my other half Claire, one of her favourites, and so we're not going to peak too early. We're gonna watch it before she goes home. Next up, we've got Kyle. He chose Jingle All the Way with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yes,
Now
trying to get that elusive toy, isn't it?
Yeah, he dived in a little bit deeper with this one. If you want to get me on for a deep dive of that, I'm keen. Could do could do 5 minutes on Arnie punching that reindeer in the face. Oh, I want to watch it now.
Yeah.
I saw this way back in 1996 for my birthday. I would have been 11. My parents bravely invited some of my friends round. I had my Spider-Man figure in hand that I just got for my birthday. I think it was like a Spider-Man figure with Doc Ock's tentacles. He had this little helmet that you control the arms with. So I had him in my hand. Again, the classic Odeon Cinema in North End. And my dad took us there. We watched the film. We loved it. We loved Arnie punching a reindeer in the face and him trying to find this elusive toy for his son. And then we went to McDonald's just up the road where my dad proceeds to buy us all cheeseburgers, fries, drinks. It was a good birthday, to be fair.
Yeah, sounds it now.
And funnily enough, it was the same year that I got that Marvel book that I mentioned earlier. So 96 was quite a good Christmas.
Yeah,
apparently.
not too shabby. A shabby year for you, a vintage year, Dan. And it is a good film, actually. Arnie, is that his first proper venture into comedy?
I think he's done it. He did comedy before, didn't he? Didn't he do the one where he was like a pregnant man? And twins as well.
Twins.
And there was one where he was a pregnant man, I'm sure.
Okay, telling a lie. But anyway, he's very, very good at it, and yeah, it is quite a good film. It is a popular one for sure.
Next up, we've got Kaylee with Home Alone 1.
Yeah,
I say number 2 as well. Absolute, both phenomenal films. I mean, if you haven't seen it, where have you been? I mean, we want to see Marv and I forget the other bandit's name. Harry, that's it. Well,
yeah.
We want to see them getting mullered by tin cans of paint and treading on nails, getting smacked in the face of irons. I mean, it's quite dark, really, when you think about it.
It's really dark. These two criminals want to kill a child who's been forgotten at home. I mean, look, the premise of this film, they're actually rebooting it, Dan. I'm not sure if you knew that, but they're rebooting it.
It's got Aisling B in it, actually.
But that was oh yeah, she just finished she just wrapped, didn't she? Time recording on Instagram. How is that ever going to be a thing though in 2020, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to watch it out of interest. I'll say Home Alone 3 was awful. It's dog shit. Don't touch that one with a barge pole. Don't waste an hour and a half of your life. But yeah, I mean, I think this came up in a previous Weekly Roundup episode where we were talking about the news of it being a reboot, and I think Macaulay Culkin's going to be in it, and Disney have just sort of thrown a bit of money at him just to make a cameo, from what I can remember.
Why not?
Is it the reboot we need? I mean, we've talked about reboots in the past. I'm not sure.
It's a classic. Not sure, but no, it's a great choice, and 1 and 2. Ironically, the sequel is decent. I wouldn't say it's better than the first, but I wouldn't say it's worse.
No,
it's on par.
It's on a grander scale. Number 2. It's all set in New York, running around toy shops, hotels.
Before Donnie Trump became president, he had a cameo, all about 5 seconds in his hotel.
But like I say, if you haven't seen these 90s classics, where have you been?
Yeah, get on it. They're great films, good choices.
And last up from Twitter, we got David. He said, "My all-time favourite is Scrooged. Best scene is when Bill Murray gets slugged with a toaster by the ghost of Christmas past. And then as a family, we watch Christmas Vacation every year on Christmas Eve."
You know what? I haven't seen either.
No, I haven't. Maybe
interesting.
It's a task for us both. Bit of homework.
Yeah, they're really good shouts. I've heard of the second one, Christmas Vacation, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I haven't heard of Scrooged. I'm about to hunt that one down and have a look, have a gander. That's a really good choice.
Could be a classic. We could both end up loving it, so it could be worth hunting down. But that literally rounds up for our favourite Christmas films. Not just ours, but the listeners.
Yeah, beautiful. And, look, if any of those pique your interest and you've had a watch, let us know how you got on. Drop us a message on the socials, or we've got some contact details down. How can the guys get in contact with us? Either any that we've missed or that they'd recommend and we can add into future episodes. How can the guys get in contact with us?
Well, we are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at On The Topic Pod. And of course, we've got Gmail, On The Topic Podcast at gmail.com. Alternatively, we always encourage that you send in your voice, be a part of the show, because this isn't just about us, this is also about you. So get involved.
It is.
We always put a link in,
always.
Generally. So just click it, accept it on your phone. Your phone won't be listening to you, but we will be. Not creepy. And we'll drop you in.
Yeah. Wonderful stuff. And just a final thing to mention, guys, we've got a competition that's live. So all you've got to do is listen out for a soundbite. It's a very famous and favourite soundbite of Dan and I's from the first 1993 classic Jurassic Park.
Yeah, one of our favourites.
When you hear it, drop us a note on the socials or contact us. Let us know when and where you heard it, and you could win some goodies from On The Topic, stickers, magnets, badges, you name it. We've got some goodies to give away. So listen out to the very end of every episode and you may be in luck for some swag.
Yeah, 100%. And if anyone wants to get involved in future episodes, our next episode we will be discussing what's next for Phase 4 for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Obviously, our bread and butter here on The Topic. And, of course, we'll be doing our annual episode of Most Anticipated. I'm not talking about vaccines or a normal year. I'm talking about pop culture, films, books, games, TV series, you name it. We want to know what you're looking forward to in 2021 and why.
Get involved.
Yeah, 100%. But going to go out at the new year with a bang, I think. And, of course, we've got plenty lined up in 2021 as well.
We do.
Exciting times. We've had to sort of shuffle things around, say, trying to work out how we're going to record again. And so we reached out to the pod and family, as you will, and they've recommended Zoom. And so far, Alex, I think it's worked.
Yeah, that's proofs in the listening. So we'll have to listen back, but I'm hoping for good things. So yeah. You gotta be dynamic in these days, and albeit it's short-lived, us being in the room at the same time, we're having to. The show must go on, and so we'll hopefully have some more episodes coming up very shortly.
But we'll leave you on that, and as I say, keep an ear out for that voice note, and I could be sending out some stickers, badges, and magnets.
Yes, please. Well, for another week, I've been Alex.
And I've been Dan.
And we'll see you next time.
'Tis the season. Ding, ding, ding.
Book, book. Hey, bell, ding-a-ling, ring, ding-a-ding-a-ling.